The next technique we are going to look at is how to factor a polynomial of the form x squared plus bx plus c. So this type of polynomial is known as a quadratic expression. So usually what happens, the way we identify something as quadratic is that the highest power of x is the second power. Usually, more generally, we say the format is ax squared plus bx plus c. So x is going to be your variable here, and you've got an x squared and you've got an x. The a, the b, and the c are just numbers. They can be positive or negative. For this particular technique, we are going to be looking at the situation where the a value is 1, meaning the number in front of x squared is positive 1. Okay, definitely you can have an a value other than positive 1. If that happens, that is going to require a different technique, and we'll do that in the next video. Okay, so in example 3, we're going to factor a handful of polynomials that have the format x squared plus or minus a number times x plus or minus another number. Okay. All right. So in part A, we've got x squared plus 15x plus 36. This is quadratic. Okay. If you notice the number in front of x squared, that's your a value, that's 1. B is the number in front of x, that's positive 15. And c is the constant, that is positive 36. Okay, so again, we are dealing with something of the form positive 1 times x squared plus a number times x plus another number. Okay, we've got something quadratic with the a value being equal to 1. So this is what you do to factor something like this. You are on the hunt for two numbers, and the signs of these numbers, meaning positive or negative, are very important. Okay, you need two numbers that multiply to be the c value. Okay, so here we need two numbers that multiply to be 36, positive 36, because the c value is positive. The other thing we need this pair of numbers to do is add up to b. Okay, so b is the number in front of x. Okay, so here we need our numbers to add to be positive 15. Okay, so again, we are looking for two numbers. These numbers must multiply to be positive 16, or sorry, they must multiply to be positive 36, and they must add up to be positive 15. Okay, you want to think about it, think about it, think about it. So the numbers that make this happen, okay, let's see, what multiplies to be 36? I've got 9 and 4. Okay, if you do like 9 and 4, those are going to multiply to be 36, but they don't add up to 15. So you don't want to use that. Okay, so you might want to, you're going to have to try a different pair. Let's see, what else multiplies to be 36? So 1 and 36. Okay, those guys don't add to 15. 2 and 18. Okay, those guys don't add up to be 15. So 3 and 12. Ooh, that works. Okay, this is the pair of numbers we're looking for. Okay, 3 times 12 is 36. 3 plus 12 gives you positive 15. Okay, so that's what we're going to use here. Okay, our numbers are positive 3 and positive 12. Okay, so, why am I talking about this? Well, this is exactly how your polynomial is going to factor. Okay, remember, we need to have something times something. Okay, we've got an x squared involved. That's the first term of the polynomial. That's going to break down into x times x. Okay, if you multiply these two guys together, you're going to get your x squared. Okay, as far as the numbers go, you're going to use these two numbers that you chose. So it's going to be x plus 3, x plus 12. Okay, and that is it. We're done. This is the factorization. That's it. Okay, again, it's great to check yourself. You can see if you got it right. I'm going to go ahead and use the box method on this. So I'm going to write x plus 3, x plus 12. Okay, make my boxes. I'm going to multiply each pair together. And this is equivalent to doing the FOIL method. All right, so let's see what happens here. So x times x is x squared. X times 12 is 12x. 3 times x is 3x. And then 3 times 12 is 36. Okay, so what happens here, okay, when we multiply this guy out, when we do the x plus 3 times x plus 12, it's going to produce these 4 terms in the box. Okay, so that's going to give us x squared plus 12x plus 3x plus 36. And then these middle terms are like terms because they both just have a single x, so you can combine them. So this is going to be x squared plus 12 plus 3 is 15x plus 36. Okay, that's what I started with, so I know that the factorization is correct. Okay, that is all you have to do for this type of polynomial. Okay, you're searching for a pair of numbers and you need to pay attention to your signs, but you're looking for two numbers that multiply to be the C value and they add up to the B value. And that's it. Then you just write it down. Okay, let's try the next one. All right, so our next polynomial that we're going to try to factor is x squared minus 8x plus 12. Okay, again, we're dealing with something of the form x squared plus bx plus c. Okay, very important here. The number in front of x squared is 1, so we can apply this particular method. The b value here is -8, and the c value is +12. Okay, all right, so I need two numbers that multiply to be the constant. So they need to multiply to be +12, and they need to add up to the number in front of x, which is -8. Okay, so signs are very, very important here. Okay, so again, you're going to have to think about, the way I usually approach this, I look for the pairs that multiply to be +12, and then out of those pairs, I look at who adds up to -8. Okay, so 12, I can do 1 and 12. I can do 2 and 6. I can do 3 and 4. And then I start repeating. So 4 and 3 and so on. Okay. If you do 3 and 4, those are going to add up to 7. Okay. But 2 and 6 look very promising. Okay. 1 and 12 don't, because they'll add to like 13. Okay. So 2 plus 6 gives you +8. We need -8. So what we're going to do here is make both of them negative. So we're going to do -2 and -6. Okay. If we multiply these guys, you're going to get -2 times -6. That gives you +12. And then if you add them, -2 plus a -6, it's going to give you -8. Okay, so that is indeed the pair that we're looking for. So we're just ready to write down the factorization. So set it up. You want something times something. The x squared is going to break down into x times x. Okay, and you're going to use these two numbers, the -2 and the -6, to do your factorization. So here it is. We're done. Okay, again, if I box this out, I will be able to check that I'm correct. Okay, so down the column, I'm going to go +x minus 2. And then across the top here, I'm going to do +x minus 6. I'm going to set up my boxes. Let me scoot this over. All right, so we set all this up. We need our 4 boxes here. And then we're just going to multiply each pair of numbers together. And that will give us what we get when we multiply the whole thing out. Okay. All right, again, I've told you this before. I like doing the box method because sometimes when people FOIL, they forget one of the terms, and the box method kind of keeps you from doing that. Okay, so let's multiply each pair. Just follow my cursor. So x times x is x squared. -2 times x is -2x. X times -6 is -6x. And then -2 times -12, or sorry, -2 times -6 is +12. okay? So when we multiply x minus 2 times x minus 6, we're going to get the 4 terms in the box. So x squared minus 2x minus 6x plus 12. Combine your like terms, the terms that just have an x, okay? Negative 2 plus negative 6 is going to give you negative 8. So this will become x squared minus 8x plus 12. And that's exactly what we started with. So we have factored correctly. All right, part C. This time the polynomial is x squared plus 2x minus 15, okay? The same type of polynomial we've been looking at. It's quadratic. The number in front of x squared is 1. So the b value, which is the number in front of x, is positive 2. The c value, which is just the number, is negative 15, okay? I need to find two numbers that multiply to be the constant, which is negative 15. And our two numbers need to add up to the number in front of x, which is positive 2. Okay. All right. So again, start thinking about the two numbers that multiply to be 15. I can do 1 and 15. I can do 3 and 5. And then that might be it. Okay. It'll start repeating because remember, you can do 5 times 3. Order doesn't matter. So it just starts to repeat. Okay. You know, if you do 1 plus 15, you're going to get 16. If you do 3 plus 5, you're going to get 8. But you can make this work if you start bringing in negative signs. Okay, if I focus on this pair, the 3 and the 5, if I do a negative 3 and a positive 5, it's going to work. Because negative 3 times positive 5 is negative 15. And negative 3 plus 5 gives you positive 2. So those are my numbers. Okay, so I'm going to look at negative 3 and positive 5. Because if I do negative 3 times positive 5, I get negative 15. And then if I do negative 3 plus positive 5, I'm going to get positive 2. Okay, so those are my numbers. So I can go ahead and just write down the factorization. I've got something times something. The x squared over here is going to break down into x times x. And then to fill in the numbers, it's just use the numbers that we found. So minus 3 plus 5. Done. We have factored. Okay. I'm going to quickly check myself by using the box method. Okay, so here I'm going to do an x minus 3 times an x plus 5. Set up my boxes. Let me try that again. My pen is going crazy. Whoops. Hang on. I need to get a new thing for my pen. Okay, so let's see here. We had x minus 3, x plus 5. And let me draw in my boxes. And now I'm going to start multiplying the pairs together. All right, so x times x is x squared. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. X times 5 is 5x. Negative 3 times positive 5 is negative 15. Okay, so when I multiply everything out, I get these four terms, x squared minus 3x plus 5x minus 15. Combine your like terms, the guys that just have an x. You're going to get x squared. And then negative 3 plus 5 is positive 2x minus 15. That is what we started with. Okay. All right. Couple more. In part D, we have the polynomial x squared plus x plus 1. Okay. It's what we've been talking about. It's quadratic. Number in front of x squared is 1. The number in front of x is the b value. It's 1. And the constant, just a number, is also 1. Okay, so we need to go on the search for two numbers that multiply to be the c value. So they need to multiply to be positive 1. They need to add up to the number in front of x, which is the b value. So they also need to add up to be positive 1. Okay, so here's the thing. When you start looking for your numbers here, okay, again, we're going to start with multiplication. What two numbers multiply to be positive 1? Okay, well, 1 and 1. Okay, those are the only numbers that I can think of that if I multiply them together, well, also I guess negative 1 and negative 1, If I do 1 times 1, I'm going to get 1. If I do -1 times -1, I'm going to get +1. However, with either pair, if I add them, 1 plus 1 is 2. -1 plus a -1 is -2. Neither of these additions result in +1. Okay, so what happens here is there is no pair of numbers that is going to work. Okay, you are not going to be able to find two numbers that multiply to be +1 and add up to +1. It's just not possible. Okay, so these two numbers are not possible. Can't find it. Okay, so what does that mean about factoring the polynomial? Okay, well, since we can't find the two numbers, this means the polynomial can't be factored. Not all polynomials factor. Okay, so that's the answer for this one. I mean, we want to be able to factor everything, but sometimes it is just not possible. Okay, can't find those numbers that we need, so you can't do it. All right, one more. Okay, 5x squared minus 25x minus 30. If you notice, this is quadratic, but the number in front of x squared is something other than 1. And I told you that you would have to employ a different technique in order to do that. Okay, now hang on. We can actually do this. Okay, one of the very first method we talked about with factoring was to always look for a common factor before you do anything else. Okay, if you look at the numbers here, 5, 25, 30, those numbers are divisible by 5. So 5 is going to be the common factor here, and we're going to take it out. Notice we cannot take out an x because the -30 term does not contain an x. Okay, but we're going to take out a 5 from each of the terms. Okay, so see what happens when we do that. Okay, 5 divided by 5 is going to be 1. Okay, so that's going to leave us with 1x squared. And then -25 divided by 5 is going to leave us with -5x. And then -30 divided by +5 is going to leave us with -6. Okay, so notice, okay, really quickly, I'm going to check myself. Okay, if you multiply this back out, like redistribute the 5, you're going to get +5x squared. And then 5 times -5 is -25x. And then 5 times -6 is -30. Okay, that's what we started with. Okay, so we are on the right track. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and erase this. All right, so now what? Am I done? Well, we talked about you need to factor until you can factor no more. Okay, so in the next step, okay, this 5, okay, it's just going to stay out front. I can't do anything with it. However, I can factor the thing in parentheses. Okay, so the x squared minus 5x minus 6 is going to break down into something times something. Okay, it has the format of 1 times x squared plus or minus a number times x plus or minus a number. Okay, so we can use the technique we just did on this particular thing in parentheses. Okay, so I'm going to come out to the side. Okay, let's say we have x squared minus 5x minus 6, and we're trying to factor this guy. So I know my a is 1, my b is -5, my c is -6. I need two numbers that multiply to be the constant -6. They add up to the number in front of x, which is -5. Okay, so when you're looking for your two numbers and you think about what can do this, things that multiply to be 6, you've got 1 and 6, you've got 2 and 3, and then it just kind of repeats from there. We are going to have to adjust our signs here. It looks like, I'm thinking in my head, I think it's going to be this. Okay, what's going to work is a +1 and a -6. Okay, you're just going to have to think through it and see what works. It might take you a couple minutes. Okay, so here we go. We're going to use -6 and positive 1. Because if I multiply them, negative 6 times positive 1, that's going to give me negative 6. And then if I add them up, negative 6 plus a positive 1, that's going to give me negative 5. Okay, so that means I can go back to my factorization. Okay, the x squared minus 5x minus 6 is going to factor into something times something. We know the x squared breaks down into x times x. And then to fill in the numbers, we're going to use these guys. Okay, minus 6 plus 1. Okay, and we have factored. You have to leave this 5 out front because we took it out from the original statement. Okay, no piece of this factors again, like the 5 doesn't break down further, x minus 6 doesn't break down further, x plus 1 does not break down further. So we are done. Okay, this is your factorization or your answer. Okay, if you multiply it back out, you should get what we started with, the original statement. And something else I will mention before I close this video. It is when you multiply things, you can multiply in any order you want. So think about it. 2 times 3 is the same thing as 3 times 2. So you could have written this also, you could have put the x plus 1 first and then the x minus 6. That's totally fine. Okay. It does matter that the 6 is negative and the 1 is positive. Okay. But you could totally put the x plus 1 factor first and the x minus 6 factor last. Okay. All right. So in the next video, we are going to go into the technique for handling what happens when the a value is not 1. Okay. It's something other than 1. And you can't remove the common factor to get around it.